So Victoria, thanks for coming on the show and welcome. And
Thank
so Victoria, you're a filmmaker, and a judge at a film festival as well.
Yeah, I'm a jack of all trades. So
Yeah.
I am an actress foremost, but then I also work behind the scenes as well. I graduated with an RTF communications background, so I learned how to edit and do camera and write. So I wanted to be a well-rounded actress. But that has led me different ways. So I have now become a judge for the Book and Film Festival. I'm also a judge for the Catra Film Festival. And I'm also a writer for the Hollywood Times. So all of my expertise in college has come well rounded.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. That's like a big thing that I started doing. I started delving into acting about 5 years ago, and live streaming about 6 years ago, just to kind of be like well rounded and all bases covered. You know how actors
hmm
sometimes might have a fallback, real estate or sales or finance or banking. And if you have a fallback, you're going to fall back on it.
It's true. I mean,
To an
see,
extent.
for me, like my fallback was find a job that lets me do my acting.
Yep.
So I became a substitute teacher because I can pick my days that I want to work. And when I don't have substitute teaching, because of COVID, of course, I also do brand ambassador jobs. And so I'm constantly doing everything's like, remodeling a Dollar General all the way to being a mascot. So I get to do a lot of things.
Hmm. Yeah. So I have a bachelor's in film and TV, and then kind of like a sort of backup. I enlisted in the National Guard, which is
Wow.
only one week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer. And so if the shit really hit the fan, I could get on active duty orders, or I could you know, get on a bunch of different like military things. But I was lucky that being full-time freelance, there was always a crew gig. And
Right.
then with the military, I started using that as a way to get acting roles as a cop or as a,
Exactly.
law enforcement, military roles, things of that nature. And then the live streaming was basically, I knew that would have been, um, the wave of the future. So it's
hmm
still within film and TV, still within video and audio and video and
That
TV.
is true.
So
I mean,
like,
this is anything you can do with online stuff is what's happening now. Like,
and that's what saved my ass right now.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good though. I mean, it all lined up for you though. Like everything was like
Yeah.
perfect.
There was a couple of voiceover, and even years down the line, I wanted to kind of set it up to where I could work from home, write, edit,
Yes.
maybe do some voiceover stuff, shoot some passion projects in my basement. And thank God I kind of like put in that last nail, like, a year
hmm
ago. And then, so
That is awesome.
it was just waiting for people to start accepting virtual conferences and virtual
hmm
DJ, musicians and DJs start accepting the fact that you got to start doing this virtually. Here's some gigs, there's some
hmm
gigs. And
Well, I think like down the line, I knew that this was going to happen, but I think
Mhm.
COVID just sped the process up. And so everything became like, all right, now online, like film festivals are online and everything is online. I'm thinking, how is supposed to network anymore? So it's very interesting and a very interesting time because watching film, the good thing about film festivals, like you get to watch all of them while sitting in the comfort of your living room.
Yep. Yep.
You don't have to jump from one theater to the next theater to the next theater.
And it's funny you mentioned, I had a colleague mention like, hey, let's try to put together a virtual film festival. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, well, as far as running a film festival, I don't know jack shit about that. I could stream it for you. I could do all
Yeah.
that. I could run the Zoom breakouts and like different things of that. And I can, if not direct the streaming, if it's just going to
hmm
be one, if it's just going to be one stream, I can
Right.
direct and produce that and run the technical aspect. Here's a couple of contacts to like some folks that are doing film festivals. Still haven't
Right.
heard back. Still haven't
Oh
heard
my
back because
gosh.
I can only imagine, not even before, the virtual film festivals, like
hmm
I've known a couple of people that worked on like maybe assistants to him or something, and it's an
It is
immense.
difficult. I've seen behind the scenes, so it's a very I so like the one who runs the festival, he has so much on his plate. It's
Yeah,
not even funny. But like when you see everything get together, like come together, it's just like this is how it happens, you know. But I really am happy that I got to see behind the scenes and like how a film festival is run and how you get the awards and who wins the awards and why do they win the awards and things
yeah.
like that. So nice
As
to
an
learn.
yeah, as an alumni, I was called back to Towson to judge their, for lack of a better term, their one of their yearly annual film festivals, and I was a judge this one year, and man, it was just all day.
Yeah.
And I had a notepad and I was taking notes and I was kind of trying to do like my own little rating system, my own little
Yeah.
Siskel and Ebert shit. And
Oh
so,
my gosh.
I did my best and I kind of give my notes to the guy and he goes, well, I can figure these out. But they didn't really have like, I think they wanted me to just pick my favorite. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
I can go over this notes and do that. But I don't like, do film festivals have, because I remember the Oscars started putting out their own little tally sheet, their own little,
Mhm.
like, is that how like it's mostly
Yeah, so
run?
they on Film Freeway, they have a ratings system. And so you pick between like 1 to 10, you know, and like there's different things. So, you know, how was the editing, like whole piece of it together, you know, how was the premise of it? And like it has different questions and that you go through and you answer was it 1 to 6, one, you know, and like one was completely like off the radar. 6 is like, okay, it was really good. And then ultimately you have it at the very end where, you know, do you pass it or you don't pass it, or is it a maybe? And so
Hmm.
that's the ending of how you move on. So once I got all those numbers and I'm like, okay, so do I pass it? Do I not pass it? A lot of times I had to put maybe because I'm like, it was good, but not my cup of tea, but it's still good, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy judging. I mean, it helps me as an actress to see what worked and what didn't and all that good stuff. But it's difficult because there's a lot of films that I have to judge that are overseas. And the one film didn't put in English subtitles. And so I'm sitting there like, I have no idea what's going on, you know?
No score, no pick from me
Yeah,
because
I was like, I can't pass this. I have no idea what they said.
I'm sure it's great,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah.
So, and that's what the comments you put in the end, like, I can't pass it because I don't know what's going on. So yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Again, it's like you have to be committed though. It's a lot of commitment because you have to keep you know, remembering, oh my goodness, I have to judge today. I got to judge, you know, like I put a specific time each day into judging the films because there's so many. Like last year, I think I did over 50 of judging. So I tried to
Jesus.
keep 10 films a week because most of them are features. So I'm watching
Oh
like
yeah,
2 hours of
yeah.
a film. So, you know, so you really have to keep on a system. So
Now, speaking of virtual, can you do me a favor? And I think, can you turn your computer down just a little bit? I'm hearing me coming back in. If you could just like
let me see. Probably because I put it on like, is that better?
100. Yeah, that's better. Can you
That's
hear
like
me?
50.
And can
Yeah,
you
I
hear
can
me
hear you.
still? Okay, good. Yeah.
I think it's because I
And
have
I
a
don't
loud
hear,
voice. No, kidding.
and you're coming through mine and then back out. Yeah. But
Well, you
so
know, I'm a woman. Our voice just does that.
I know I'm married. I've been married for like a little over a year now. I get it. It didn't happen until like right after we got back from the honeymoon. And I'm like, why are you so much louder now? So,
It's so true.
so, uh, so not only film judge, actress, filmmaker. Have you been back on set yet?
I have. So during quarantine, I was the actress who didn't want to stop. So I actually had 3 productions come to my house.
Oh,
And
dope.
so they filmed at my house. I did 1 PSA and 2 features. And so that was fun. That was interesting because I had to constantly be cleaning before they came and then clean after they went. It's just like weird having everybody in my house.
Hmm.
But And then I was on set in Washington, D.C. last week. And then the week before that, I was in Maryland. So things are opening up. Little slower than I would have hoped, but I've been, busy creating my own content during the downtime. So I was always working with the camera, working with my editing, just keep on practicing, and keeping things moving. But yeah, I mean, I've been pretty blessed to be able to keep, acting through this
It's
time.
and it's funny you mentioned blessed. Me and a number of guests have brought that up on here, and again, I always mention, like, I don't know. I definitely would use the word blessed in my case. But where was I? When and where was I first blessed? Was I blessed with the hindsight to set up the home studio and focus on a lot of different little areas within film, TV, and live streaming and audio and video
Hmm.
in order to, like, hey, listen, now we're trapped in the house. Okay, I can do voiceovers. I did a couple of voiceover gigs, mostly live streaming, corporate and industrial, some freelance, smaller independent artists and musicians, live streaming things, you know, uh, hindsight, found production hacks to pull off some, unique web series. And then, but they were still in the can. I'm always on set. When am I going to edit this? And then April comes around,
Wow,
I'm locked in. And so it's just like edit,
that's
finish it.
perfect.
But definitely blessed, like, whether at some point it dawned on me to be a semi jack of all trades, a master of one or two, in
Hmm.
order to, like, still be working and still be creative and productive now.
Yes.
So yeah, blessed. I can't agree with I
Amazing.
can't agree with you more about that. Blessed.
Yeah, it is.
So back on set and general. Well, when it first started, how would you say you were impacted when the quarantine first started?
Well, being with my day jobs, so I had about, I'm going to say, 6 brand ambassador jobs cancel on me, and that was almost going to be like $1,000 there. So that was difficult, like seeing literally, because like I finished up school right when the cutoff was happening, with the quarantine. But with all my brand ambassador jobs gone, and then I was like, all right, now I have to go on unemployment. Of course, I was like, this is great. But I think that's also another blessing in disguise, because like I still got the amount of money that I would have gotten if I worked. And then I had all day to figure out, what can I do with my acting? What fun can I do? But I think for all, like, also it's like when I was on set, like, you always have to wear your mask, you always have to be clean, constantly cleaning your hands and remembering to be 6 feet apart. And I think that's the hardest thing, especially like the one scene I had, I was a fight scene. So how do you stay 6 feet apart when you're trying to fight this person?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, let's just hug, So
Right.
that part you couldn't be 6 feet apart, but so you always had to um, keep that in mind, and that was difficult, I think, especially when you're in acting mode, you're in your character zone, and then you're like, oh wait a second, no wait, I have to break because I had to remember I have to do this, like, so it messes with your brain a little bit, especially like
Yeah.
when you just want to act it, you just want to do your character, and
And
so
that comes down to some more creative and tricky directing, ADing. I'm an experienced director and much more experienced assistant director, and I just got certified as COVID compliance officer,
nice.
and so now trying to think extra outside that box. But no, having been an experienced director in AD, I'm able to, bring to the table as a CCO. Okay, here's maybe some suggestions on how you can break this up and blah blah blah. But
Hmm.
as like you said, like that fight scene, I've had to, like, redo some people's fight scenes. They wanted, like, some off the wall Jackie Chan shit, and I said that's not happening. Like,
No.
we don't have the time for this. These aren't the actors aren't martial artists. They're not even trained stuntmen and
Yeah.
women. It was a man and a woman. I said, listen, we got about an hour. If you want to make our day, I mean, the crew is down for doing an hour overtime,
Right.
unpaid overtime. And so be gracious of that. And here's how we're going to like simplify the shit out of this. And now with COVID, it's like super simplify the shit out of this
Mm-hmm.
fight
Yeah,
scene. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be like Rocky 3 when you could clearly see none of them were hitting each other. I don't know if you've seen
exactly.
those. You remember like those? There was that huge gap.
It's like
Like,
it's over on top of their head.
uh-huh. Yep. Yeah.
It's
And so
true.
yeah. But yeah, that's awesome that you're, back on set, because very few of my guests, recently have been back on set. So
Oh, I've just been happy that I got booked and I was like, I'm in, I'm doing it, you know.
yeah.
Because it's like I'm like a big like overachiever. So when there was nothing to do, I was like pulling my hair out. I was like, this is not okay. This is we gotta do something. So I was just really happy that, I keep my connections alive. It's all about connections.
Hmm.
And when they found out that, hey, I'm willing to be on set, I'm willing to work, so that's how you get the gigs to come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. And I've been seeing on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, I think Instagram, people are changing their thumbnail pictures,
Hmm.
their profile pictures with that banner around it, open to work.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
it's true.
so it,
It's like sometimes I know you have to be cautious and stuff during COVID, but if you're going to get it, you're going to get it, so just go and do your thing, because it's
yeah.
like sometimes you could be as cautious as you can and still catch it,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what to do now, so,
Hmm. Yeah. And I still have the National Guard drills, and that's like
right.
putting the wife at unease. But aside from that, I'm not doing anything on set unless I was a CCO. I'm not going to be doing
Mhm.
anything on set until maybe there's like that first batch of vaccines come out, and
Right.
then we'll see what they say about that. But I don't even think it's going to be the first batch for me. It's
Yeah.
because we got a 6 month old and her, so I got to keep them safe and healthy. But still,
Mhm.
I'm still productive and active with what trades are being begged
Mhm.
for. So luckily, I just happened to pick
Good.
up, learn that one little craft still within our industry that it's
Oh
like
man.
like we both said, it's been a blessing. But
Mhm.
over being an overachiever, have you been binge reading, binge watching, binge
Oh
binge
goodness.
studying, or absorbing
Yeah.
anything?
Binge watching a lot. So a lot of my friends were in Gotham, and so I decided I had to watch the series just so I could support them.
Hell yeah.
Like, and then right, they're like, I saw you on there. So I did binge watch Gotham. I binge watched like Lost in Space. Like I'm all over the place, but like shows that I've always wanted to watch and never had the time. That's what I was, working on, like Sons of Anarchy,
Hmm.
those type of really intense character type shows. I really enjoy them.
Yeah,
Um,
I forgot about Lost in Space. I think I watched the first season, and then I saw the second season came out, and like,
yeah, it only had 2 seasons, and then 2018 it stopped. And I don't know if they're thinking of picking it back up. I was reading in the Hollywood Reporter something about they're thinking about it, but they're not sure.
yeah,
So,
because probably they were, there's that big break in filming,
yes,
because I think when quarantine hit, the second season came out, or
yeah.
right before it, or
I think it was.
something like.
I would think it was before it
I think it
came
was I
out.
think it was this year, but it was like right before the quarantine. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so like I'm catching up on some old stuff like Agent Agent Carter of
Okay.
the MCU.
Hmm.
And like I'm a big MCU, big both Marvel and DC fanboy. So I'm
Nice.
really I'm really hoping that WandaVision and Falcon and the Snowman and Loki still come to Disney Plus like in a timely fashion, because
Exactly.
I don't think I read anything about it being held up. I think they finished
Like,
Principal. So
okay. They
I'm
could have
really
gone through it all before everything hit. So, because they were pretty close.
well, my last acting gig was on this crime show. I think March 10th was my last acting gig, and March 12th was my last crew gig, and they shut that down halfway through. As we were
Mhm.
setting, they said strike. It's
Oh my gosh.
it's canceled. So that's kind of like my basis, my time frame. I'm thinking like March 15th, everything shut down,
Mhm.
and so hopefully my shows. But yeah, Agent Carter is really cool. I never got into that because I think that was on one of the networks, and
Okay.
I'm one of those like streaming apps only. So when Agent
Right.
Carter finally came to Disney Plus, now I'm binge watching that, and I'm trying to find like ultra independent films,
Mhm.
like when Blair Witch first came out. I mean, okay, so Heat with De Niro and Pacino was the film for me that made me want to become a filmmaker. Heat is like to me one of the greatest films ever made of all time.
Mhm.
And then Blair Witch, when I saw what they pulled off with Blair Witch, I was amazed. I was blown away.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at like these ultra low budget, smart, independent films.
Mhm.
Like there's a movie called Primer, and there's a movie called
Hmm.
Coherence, and that only takes place in like one or two and Reservoir Dogs. That's another one. The whole thing took place in a
Oh, I've heard of
warehouse.
that one. I didn't get to see that one yet though,
You're
but I've
joking.
heard
You're
that was a really
joking.
good one.
Reservoir Dogs?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Tarantino's big directorial debut, and the whole movie takes place essentially with a couple of other scenes outside the warehouse. The whole movie takes place in a warehouse,
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
it's like a heist film that never shows the heist.
Hmm.
And so that was groundbreaking to me. And it's
That's
like all
very
these
cool.
little pocket indie films that are like, kind of breaking the rules a little bit, still telling
Mhm.
the same exact story that Avengers or Batman's would tell, but not
Mhm.
showing everything.
Right.
Finding a way of working around that, but still telling the story in a way.
I feel like that's happens a lot with fan films as well. Like Star Trek fan films.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been watching a couple of the independents of those, and I'm thinking, wow, they've got really good editing skills to like really put what budget they had to put it all together, and it really flowed. I'm thinking, okay, so you don't really need that much
Mm-hmm.
financially to make a good film. You just have to be smart with the money you do have and where you're going to place it.
Yeah.
So I believe that a lot of fan films do that, and it's amazing what storylines they can come up with. So that's one of my projects I'm trying to get into, is a fan film of Star Trek. I was like, just try and get me into one of those fan things. It'd
And
be
you know what?
fun.
And you know what? Like a big budget version is Groundhog Day. It's just the
Hmm.
same day repeated over and over again. They just had him wake up in the same bed and react differently. They had him go to that big party at the end,
Hmm.
and they had him react differently. They just kept shooting it over and over and over again. You're doing something different now. You're doing something different now. You're on day 20. You're on day 40. You're on day 50, and
That's so funny.
it's like that outside of the box thinking. Oh, what the hell else did we watch that was just like it? Oh, I was just talking about it with a previous guest. There's this movie Palm Springs with Andy Samberg on
Mhm.
Hulu, and it's a Groundhog Day type theory, and he's stuck at a wedding, and there's even less. There's
Hmm.
even less like locations. There's a wedding. There's a wedding ceremony, reception, the pool that he's drinking at, and a cave and a hotel room, and like it's like
Hmm.
these four sets, but he's living the day over and over and over again, and it's
Hmm.
just like these unique ways of pulling off, a feature film. Everybody wants to like make that feature film,
Right.
you know, because a feature film is way more marketable for, say, Netflix or the
Right.
theater or whatever. And it's like, how do you pull it off in a smart way? And it's just unique. That's what I'm
Hmm.
looking at, is like these bizarre titles, and I'll
Yeah,
take the time to read, the synopsis, the little byline or whatever to see if it's worth it. But it's
that's
unique.
true.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
what's what what's next on the agenda? Say 6 months to a year from now. What's next on the agenda for Victoria Stevens?
So I have a couple of feature films that are coming into play probably around November is when we're going to be starting shooting that, because we have a humongous cast on all both of them. So with that being said, like they wanted to push it as far as they could, to pass, hopefully, this whole quarantine stuff. But for me, the goal that I got new headshots done during quarantine because I'm working my way up to getting like my guest star roles on cop dramas. So I could see myself like on Law and Order, NCIS, things like that. So that's my main goal, is to push my way in more into TV. I've done so many independents, so many features, shorts, and now it's TV time. Now it's my my baby of TV. So it's like that's where I'm working on. I've done a lot of ID channel stuff, which is investigative discovery. But I really want to do networks. I really want to get on these bigger shows. And I think with these new headshots, it really shows them, like, sometimes you have to spell it out for them, like what you can do.
Yeah.
And so the headshots really showed it really well, which is good. But like I'm definitely, like, I play so many cops, it's not funny. So it's like one of these times I need to play a cop on a good drama.
And now that I think about it, I think you and I worked together on one of those ID shows. Were you ever at the Lanham location? And
I think I've
at
been there twice.
that Bible college in Lanham where
Yeah,
they always shoot at? Yeah. You
I,
and I
I
think that's
think
how
we have.
yeah, because
Yes.
I was a detective, I think also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it. I can't remember. It's so funny because
It's such a
I can't
small world.
remember what that was called.
Oh shit, man. What was that? It was
I think you're right. I think you're right.
true conviction, evil kin, evil stepmothers, who killed Jane Doe,
Yeah, because I was
uh,
like on Hell House, Amish Haunting, Nightmare Next Door,
Nightmare Next
Copycat
Door,
Killers.
copycat. It was copycat killers then. It was probably copycat killers.
Yeah, because I was
Because
in the Slender Man series. So I was the mother of the girl who was killing people.
no, you and I worked on something. You were a uniformed cop, and I think you were a uniformed cop, and I was a detective. And it was at that Lanham. It was either at that Lanham location, or is that other house that they use over and over and over again.
That mansion house.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's one
Frederick.
thing I do. I wear the suit well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, like I told them, I said, typecast me, put my name out there. I can't agree with you more. Like I try to figure out, I try to keep my headshots up to date as far as acting goes. But
Mhm,
for me, it's just like take the gig. You
mhm.
got to have at least like that bare minimum day rate or weekly rate or whatever.
Right.
But take the gig, get it, be in the thing, do the work.
Yes.
Headshots is one thing that gets you maybe, to a casting agent, to a casting director.
Exactly.
But once you're on set, you're in front of them and they're going to see you, and then you're doing the work, and that's what the whole world sees. And then they're going to be able, and just
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like, oh shit, I got to get some headshots done. But I got this gig, this gig, this gig, this gig. All right, I'll just put the headshots
Mm-hmm.
to the end of that, and then it's like another gig, another gig, another gig. So
Exactly.
that's kind of
Exactly.
just like
Well, they were saying when because I was trying to get on Orange is the New Black, and they were saying that the people who came on as a co-star, they liked them and they became a serious regular
right.
just from a co-star. So you never know, what becomes of the role that you have, even though it's so small, it could become something completely different. You
Great,
just never know.
absolutely great example. Even The Office. If you watched
Yes.
The Office, the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
show The Office, first season, 6 episodes. The only person I recognized, because I watched it as it first came out, and the only person I
Mm-hmm.
recognized was Steve Carell from
Right.
doing like bit parts on The Daily Show, and I even remember him from Ben Stiller's series that Ben Stiller had on Fox, like in the '90s. Steve Carell was
Mhm.
on that, and then Steve Carell was like one of those goofy correspondents back in like early days of Daily Show, like before Jon Stewart, when that blonde dude was on the Daily Show. That blonde dude was the host, and then Jon Stewart took over. But Steve
Mhm.
Carell was like one of those goofball correspondents that would ask people weird questions to throw them off, like the Borat type of goofy question.
Right.
And so then he was on The Office. I'm like, this guy's kind of funny. This might be a funny show. Everybody else was freaking no name, especially the people in the back of the
Yeah.
office.
Right.
By season 3, you got Stanley, Phyllis, everybody knows
Exactly.
every single character's name. And it's just like you're saying with Orange is the New Black, like you're right, like all those like those 2 Hispanic girls and maybe the 2 other black girls, because there was the main black girl,
Hmm.
main white girl, and then the older Russian white lady who
Hmm.
blew me away. That Russian lady is the freaking captain from Star Trek
Star
9,
Trek.
Star
Hmm.
Trek Deep Space or Voyager.
It was, I'm gonna
Voyager.
say it was Voyager because Deep Space was, it was in a woman captain.
It was the black.
It was Voyager.
It was yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck,
I
dude?
know.
That's her. And
Yeah.
like, but then all 17 of those girls started like having, like you
And they
said,
said
having,
that they kept them all on, like they weren't supposed to be serious regulars. And
yeah.
I think it also helps though, because Orange is the New Black, it's about the community of the prison.
Mm-hmm,
If you only had select, it wouldn't have felt like a community, like
mm-hmm,
people who you had to live with every single day of your life.
right.
So I liked how they did it. It was really smart.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And so, like keeping that in mind, at least, like of course you got to build that core skeleton to the show. Like, and I revert back to The Office when I tell people about like 6 episodes in the first season. And
Mhm.
with the exception of Steve Carell, like complete no names, Krasinski, Jenna Fisher, um, Rainn Wilson, no names at the time. I'd never seen those people
It's
before in my
very
life.
interesting how the production took a risk on no
Yep.
names. I
Yep.
wish that they did that more now, but I feel like now they use the names to get people, like the audience, to the show now. You
And,
know what I'm saying? So like back then they were.
and even their name actor was Stephen Carell,
Hmm.
who, like, had you not watched a shitload of TV like I did, you would not. Nobody really knew who the hell
What
he
now?
was.
Right.
But still, he was like the most name actor on the show. And they only and they so they took a small risk, 6 episodes, but they promoted the shit out of it because it turned
Hmm.
out to be hilarious, absolutely hysterical. And season 2, you got love triangles. You got, I think, what was it,
Right.
20 episodes, 18 episodes, like
I think so.
a full season with season 2 and on.
Mm.
And like it's just like a little bit of risk,
Right.
backing up that risk with promotion and faith, at least faith. You know what I mean?
Right. It's
And
true.
yeah, so
As long as
it,
you have a good marketing team, it can go far.
yeah,
That's all
mhm,
about it. Learn how to market.
yeah,
And
like
I've taken classes on marketing, and I'm like, I still don't get it.
I know. I tried like self marketing, and so I kind of like from a filmmaker standpoint, and then making other little side projects to kind of do tie-ins to push for marketing, that I
Mhm.
get. But like social media marketing and like pumping it out and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
hashtags and
It's difficult because like
keywords.
I've taken these classes with the social media marketing, and I've talked to PR people, and I've trying to learn from them. And I'm like, okay, there's just not enough content in my head to figure out, put on paper. Like, there's nothing for me to say right now, you
Mhm.
know? So, and they're like, well, find something that's interesting to people. I'm like, what am I supposed to know? It's interesting to people, you know? So it just, to me as an actress, I'm not on that brain, and it's hard because like you're also trying to teach yourself because it is a business. So you
Yeah,
have to be both sides of that brain in order to, get yourself started. And it's difficult because you're like, I don't know what to do.
yeah.
So
I mean, in my case as a filmmaker, obviously I'm utilizing YouTube. YouTube is basically has been, my primary for 10 years, maybe a little, maybe 12 years. And it's like I have to set reminders just to set aside like a day, maybe once a month, to look at like what's the trending hashtags. And
right.
then I just copy and paste it. Like
Cool.
I can't be like on one video and like strategically putting keywords or hashtags or stuff in the description. It's like it's basically just copy and paste, and then I'll see what maybe what updates there are, maybe. And I've got colleagues that that definitely help me out. We're all a team, and
Good.
one's a little bit more into the marketing and the social media marketing and the branding,
Mhm.
and he'll send me like, hey, when it comes to superhero stuff, use all this, and I'm just like, select all, copy, paste into
Perfect.
that, and like I use the app Notes on my Mac, and I'm like, I got like
Mhm.
probably 50,000 notes for this
Oh,
project, that
wow.
project, this project, that project, and it's just copy and
Right.
paste. Because
Oh, I agree.
as far as filmmaking goes, when I stop and go step by step, micro step by micro step, that's with the creative shooting, writing, shooting, editing,
Hmm.
or the acting. But
Right.
like with the marketing, man, it's like copy and paste. Even though like we're still super ultra independent, I
Hmm.
I still can't even handle that. So it's
Yeah.
luckily, some colleagues, team up and kind of like try to double team some projects. But yeah, like
I mean, but that leads you to this business is not an independent business. You have to have those other people because they have other talents that you don't have that will
mhm.
heighten your project. So it's like where everyone thinks I could just do it myself. No, you really can't. Like you need to have a team and a good team to make things happen.
Yeah, and like I've dealt with those ego heads where it's like, nah, man, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and then you don't see shit from them
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
they're overwhelmed or they're inundated or they just quit after that, being overwhelmed and inundated. And then they just decide to
Hmm.
quit, and it's like, yeah,
Or
man,
they're
like
procrastinators, like
on
a
top of
lot of
that,
times with the ego heads, like after a certain thing, like if something doesn't go their way, then it's like, well, then it's done. I can't do this, like so it's like a completely end all with them because
yeah,
it's overwhelming. It's not meant to be, you're not meant to do this yourself.
trying to wear too many hats. And then like from a filmmaker standpoint, you got so many directors that are probably editing their own thing and they're such a perfectionist. It's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready yet. Like, bro, you have to give yourself deadlines. You
Hmm.
have to give yourself deadlines. And you have to Arnold Schwarzenegger said it perfectly. He goes, hey man, you're not going to be able to pull this off and with 8 hours sleep. Just sleep faster. six
Hmm.
hours sleep faster.
Hmm.
And it's like, sleep
And
faster.
sometimes I feel like I know it's your name and you want your name to be good and stuff, but sometimes you have to take a risk on what you created and
Hmm.
send it out there. You can't like so many directors I know and they're second guessing their stuff and it's not getting out there. And I'm like, I work on your project because I need it to get out there.
Hmm.
As actors, we need our stuff out there. So it's like if you're
Yeah.
not going to push it, like you got to push it. And I know like directors especially, they're very much like, yeah, but this, I want it to look, make sure it has my name is good to it. And I'm like, okay, all said and done, if it's the best you can do, then send it.
And listen, that first thing is not going to be perfect and
No,
great and Oscar worthy, but it could still be good if someone saw it.
exactly.
But if no one sees it, then it's not good because no one saw it.
Hmm.
So
That's
absolutely, man.
that's
Yeah,
true.
it's like you gotta put deadlines, and it depends. It depends on the project. I mean, I got a couple of web series where it's kind of even on quantity versus quality, but you
Hmm.
gotta have like one episode a year.
Hmm.
That's not gonna cut it, man. But
Hmm.
if you've got 10 episodes every 6 months, you got 10
Right.
episodes every 3 months, and you're kind of churning them out and they're good.
Right.
That's better than one great episode a year. People are going to forget about that shit and they might not catch the second one that it's like,
Well, what they are not, or a lot of people don't catch is the reason why you have so much content coming out is you want to grow the following. If you have one every year, you're not growing a following. You're not, you have to get them interested to come back,
right.
and
Mhm.
that's like the big thing. Like you got to grow that following. And if you don't grow it, there's no point of putting your stuff out there. It's not going to be seen.
Right. Like I know people editing audio podcasts for weeks. And I'm
Mm,
like, bro, there's not even video to it.
exactly.
It's all it's audio. People, I get it. There's some podcasts that are very finely tuned edited,
Hmm.
but some of the big podcasters, man, they're just shooting the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though, and especially if it's just an audio podcast, just an audio cast, it's like fine when you started, fine when you ended. All those little mistakes inside, those little those little like coughs and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it can be charming. It can be endearing because
Exactly.
because the listener can actually kind of relate to that. Like these are just Joes
Mm-hmm.
chatting,
Yeah.
talking about real shit, talking about serious stuff, talking about fun stuff, but they're just Joes chatting, just like me. I'm a Joe listening, and so they can
Right.
relate. But if you've, like if it's a highly edited uh, CNN, NPR, C-SPAN audio cast
Mm-hmm.
of boring ass political stuff,
Yeah.
that's different. But it depends on what you're trying to do, who you're marketing to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like with this podcast, for example, I got this set up. I spent time before even before even kicking off the podcast, like building the studio. I knew what I was doing, building the studio, the graphics,
Mm-hmm.
like the interface and how it looks, and lower thirds and like backgrounds and flashy
Nice.
things and opening video and closing video, so that it's like turnkey.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got Laura coming in on at 2. I got Victoria coming on at 3:30. Stop, start, start, stop, turnkey. And so that
Yeah.
so that there's a little bit of prep there for the quality, but then the
Mm-hmm.
turnkey, but then the turnkey factors for the quantity,
Right.
to for both, for building a following of both quality and quantity. So,
That's cool.
it's like it is a tricky balance, but like you said, the shit's got to get out there because you got actors that did it, shit, maybe for free
Yeah.
or very low day rates,
Yeah.
ULB rates, and it's like, listen, the rates barely paid for my gas. You fed me, but come on, man, you got to put this out so that people can see my performance because I gave you a stellar performance.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a good film, but you got to put the gift wrap on this shit and put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think as an actress, like it gets really frustrating when those people don't put your stuff out there because
Yeah.
it's like, well, why did I put all the heart and tears and everything into it if it was never going to be seen in the first place? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you're especially if it's an emotional drama piece, like then you're putting your entire being into this character and you're like, why did I just do that? So it's like it gets really frustrating,
Yeah.
when the people don't realize that when we book these roles, it's meant to at least give it to you for your real, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. And you and the rest of the cast and probably the rest of the crew took a risk on the film. So you got to do the same thing as a director.
Yeah.
Put the gift wrap, take the risk. Listen, here it is. Got to put a deadline on it. Put the film out. That's the risk that you're putting in return to what everybody else put a risk in for you.
Hmm.
And but also, and I've said this a bunch of times, the most important thing is the film.
Yeah.
So it's not the director's OCD perfection complex. It's not the director's ego. It's not the lead actor's ego, not the lead actress's uh, ego, uh, DP's ego. It's
Hmm.
the film's ego. It's the film is the most important thing, which
Hmm.
leads me to then say the film's got to get released and seen. That's
Right.
the most important thing, is for the film to be out there and seen and
Yeah.
heard and experienced, appreciated, liked. I'm sure it's going to be liked.
Hmm.
If it's not great, I mean, what's one of my other favorite films? I mean, The Island. I love that
Hmm.
movie, The Island, with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson.
Hmm.
I love that movie. Not the greatest movie.
Right.
It's a Michael Bay film. A lot of people make fun of Michael Bay films, but I love The Island, and it's not the greatest Oscar-winning. But it's a pretty damn good
It's
action
a good
flick.
story.
But and
Okay.
yes, of course, these guys have $1 million to like just knock out all the CGI in that CGI warehouse,
Mhm.
They used to call them what do they call those things? They used to call them toaster rooms, where you had like 17 CGI people like working on one scene and then render, and then they go to another computer and they would work on one scene and render, and so on and so
Wow.
forth. But
One of these days I want to just sit in that room and watch like professional editors try, like I'm like, how long does it take you to do one little tiny clip? Like, oh my gosh, like I need to
no,
sit there and just watch it.
like you look at the end of you look at the end of Avengers Endgame, the running credits, man, is it's just like names upon names in just one department, names upon names.
Crazy.
They're probably just doing a 3-minute scene, and they're sitting there
Yeah.
for like a week or two on this 3-minute scene. It's a lot of money goes into it. Sure, they have that money, you don't. So it's like, bro, you're going to be here for 5 years editing this film, or just put it out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So speaking of like CGI and technology and virtual and whatnot, what's your view of the new normal?
View of the new normal. Well, it was bound to have self tapes come into play. You can have a hate love relationship with a self tape because it actually puts the stress and pressure on the actress to be everything. So you have to know how to do the camera. You have to make sure you have the lighting. You have to make sure that, you have everything set up so you can do the self tape, but then somehow break yourself from doing behind the scene camera work to doing a good self tape. So the performance is, there. So that's hard for the new normal, because it's not going to be in person. I actually, believe it or not, had one in person audition last Saturday. My very first. I had to get temperature checked, all this. Um, but I was just like so thrilled. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to a real audition. But I've had so many self tapes, it's not funny. So believe it or not, I'm getting better at them. I'm perfecting them. But again, I have to be the judge of them now. Where in the room, the casting director is like, yeah, that didn't work so well. Let's try it somewhere else. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. You've got to be your own, and hopefully send the right one that's better to, for them to see. Like, that's difficult because actors already are hard on themselves. They already critique themselves like crazy. So to say like, okay, make sure that your self tape is, you know, worthy of sending it in. People, most actors are like, it's never going to be worthy of sending it in.
Right.
Like it's never going to be there. So that's difficult, I think, for the acting part of it. But I mean, everything else, going virtual. I mean, it's been better for me because of the fact that I can take classes. Like I took UCB classes during this quarantine, and I had to learn from teachers from LA. So I was excited because I got to meet people and network with people I would never have been able to meet or network with.
If it
Uh,
wasn't for the whole if it wasn't for the whole virtual universe, yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I'm still meeting and networking with people from LA and some from Canada, and think people that I would never have met. So it's like you never know. Like it can I think you have to look on the positive side of everything. I mean, because everybody's going to look on the negative side, like, oh my gosh, we're never going to have in-person auditions anymore and all this. But there's so much good things that can come of this too, and so much networking that you can do now that you wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah.
So,
And honestly, I'll admit this podcast was like a sneaky way of me networking and spamming everybody in my industry on Facebook and LinkedIn. And
yeah.
and it turns out not only have I worked with you, I worked with my guest. I auditioned for my guest yesterday. Like my first 15 guests when I first started this podcast back in April were like direct contacts of people that I have worked with, and then I started like
Mhm.
reaching out to people in the industry, like in the DMV area. Then I just decided like, hey, just copy and paste, spam the hell out of everybody, like
Right.
freelance film and TV, audio, video. And then I unchecked freelance, and I was like, hell, if they work at a radio station, I don't know if they're teleworking now, so maybe they have something to say too. And But
Right.
yeah, like admittedly, this podcast was like, a quadruple, threat, like something to do, something to stay productive and creative, an
Hmm.
outlet not just for myself, but for my guests to like I said, like I was saying with the agenda, like what's your agenda? And it's like you can use this kind of like to showcase what your agenda is or what you're back at to now or what you've been doing teleworking or what you've been doing working from home or what have you.
Yeah.
And then if they're going to promote that to promote themselves, they're going to promote me, which might lead to more followers and then more networks and then more people that might want to jump in and
Exactly.
snowball and ultra compound. And yeah, so you're right. It's it sucks, man, because I love set life. I live for set life, in front or
Yeah.
behind the camera, different locations, travel, um, network, just meet strange
Right.
and unusual people. Like the last feature film I worked on, I was second AD, and half the crew were from Norway. For somehow
Wow.
this somehow the
That's
whole camera
awesome.
department, the entire camera department, and the script soup were from Norway,
Oh my gosh.
and then the rest of us were like LA and Philly people. And I just got reached out. I'm from the DC area, but I got reached out to it, to work on that. And just like met like some random people from Norway. And I have family. My dad married a Swede, and so then he expatriated to Sweden and retired in Sweden. So we started like talking about Sweden and
Very
Norway and
cool.
blah 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 blah. So
You never
set
know.
yeah, but
Yeah.
set life is like an also like a fun way of doing that.
Right.
But now it's way easier, but you're just not out there. Like
Exactly.
I'm yeah, I definitely miss set life. That,
I mean, it's
that
gonna come back. It's
I'm
just time, you know.
yeah.
Things are, I mean, TV episodes are shooting now again, so it's coming. We just gotta keep pushing.
Yeah, with the help of the first AD always thought he was the most hated, but now it's going to be the CCO on sets the most hated. Like
Yes.
step off to the side.
I mean,
No,
they have to be very careful, those people who got the degrees, to do that, because of
yeah.
the fact that if anybody gets COVID on that set, does that shut that whole thing down? Like,
Well,
yeah.
there's well, it depends. I mean, it would take we would go on until about 6 for me to go through that whole process,
I know.
but yeah, it depends. I mean, if like some person had a fever, then you got to pull them off and then
Mm,
send them to go get tested, and then if they're tested, then you kind of have to like trace it back and then maybe shut down, and then there's different periods of shutting it down.
mm,
But also, like as a CCO, you got to walk around and be like, you guys got to put your mask on, put your mask on, put your
yeah.
mask on, put your mask on. That's gonna be all freaking day. Put your mask on.
Oh my
Over
God.
the nose, over the mouth. Over the nose, over the mouth.
Yeah, that's
And
gonna be
like,
the big thing.
and
I
then,
mean,
and no, go ahead.
well, I was saying Tyler Perry, he did it, amazingly, because he quarantined his entire crew and cast.
Hmm.
And that's how he did it. Like, he said that they still had to deal with the mask issue and whatnot, but he didn't have anybody get COVID on his set, and he did it right during quarantine.
And he went hard about it. He was like, he
He
wasn't
was
playing.
very adamant about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he quarantined them, the entire people, had them all live together.
Yeah.
So it's like that,
Exactly.
maybe that's the way to go.
Hmm.
You know.
Well, if there's one last point, one last bit of advice you want to give our viewers, what would that be?
Don't give up during this quarantine time. I feel like a lot of people have not, like, they're a little bit depressed about what's going on, and I feel like people need to be able to stay positive. I really do. I think things are going to change, but accept the change and work with the change. Don't fight it. Like, that's my big advice during this time. Is a lot of people are very upset about the self taping, and they're getting themselves all in this negative zone. I'm like, no, no, just learn how to like them. You know, that's the big thing. Just
Yeah.
learn how to change with what's going on and just stay positive, because we're all in it together and we're all having to deal with it together. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just one person. So,
Listen, if and this is not a dig at you, but if you can do it, other people can do it. Clearly it's possible if you're pulling it off. If I'm pulling off,
exactly.
if I'm able to do something, then it's possible.
Exactly.
Now, the difference between possible and probable is up to the individual. If you're gonna be negative and just quit, then it's not probable that you'll do it, but it is possible because you know Victoria's knocking it out. The Rock is still like making films or Kiefer Sutherland's still making TV shows.
Yeah.
This director's still directing projects. It's obviously it's possible if one person pulled it
Exactly.
off. They said Flight by Airplane was impossible, but the Wright brothers made it
Exactly.
possible, proved it was possible. Now, is it probable to build your own plane? Not probable, but if you stick to it and you find a way and you stay
Yeah.
positive, and another thing to touch upon what you were saying. So I've been doing crew work since like '05, '06,
Hmm.
a bachelor's degree in film and TV. So that's been my career path since maybe '05 or '06.
Hmm.
But so after joining the military, it dawned on me, hey, maybe I can fill in the schedule with acting. I can play cop, I can play detective, play military. So to fill in the schedule. And then one year it was just all acting gigs and very little crew work because I just kept getting booked for like detective
Wow.
this, officer that. And then a year later, it was a shitload of like live streaming events and camera operation or live directing a live event, and
Hmm.
then maybe some crew work on TV or film. And so you got a lot of actors like, man, there's not enough work out there, man. Like, what else can I do? And I'm like, dude, start booking PA gigs.
Hmm.
If you're starting up as an actor, start booking PA gigs, because as an actor, I already knew what a director and a cinematographer and a sound guy and a lighting guy and an AD were looking for. So if
Right.
you start taking the perspective from a crew, that might actually help out with your acting. Now, I'm not saying lose sight of your main goal. What's your main goal? Acting? Okay. Don't
Hmm.
lose sight of that. Your main goal is directing. Don't lose sight of that. But if you're looking for work, make your
Yeah.
fallback, make your fallback still within the realm of film, TV, what have you. And
Right.
so Phil, you'll learn a shitload of stuff behind the camera and what the crew's looking for. And then when you get another acting gig, you got a little bit better mindset of what the director's looking for, the camera, the cinematographer, the lighting, and the sound, and be a boom operator. And
Hmm.
then take gigs as a boom operator. And then back to the acting, it's like, oh, okay, I see what they're looking for as far as like this, that, and the other thing. You'll get this other perspective of set life that will help
Hmm.
enhance your acting, or vice versa. Like after all this acting, I started seeing what directors are doing,
Right.
which would like, and that's what Ben Affleck started doing. Ben Affleck
Exactly.
was a huge star actor, started working with all sorts of incredible directors. He became a writer director himself. Same with Clint Eastwood.
Hmm.
Clint Eastwood was like definitely a bigger, better example before Affleck, but he was on that show. I don't know, some Western show. And then he started getting into spaghetti Westerns, and he started,
Right.
then he started directing himself, and he started directing the films because he worked with all these like incredible directors of Westerns and stuff like that. And then he progressed from
Exactly.
there. But he had both perspectives, and that's what Ben Affleck did. That's what John Favreau started doing. John Favreau started directing. And so,
Well, a big thing is when you also take behind the scene work like that, you're also networking.
and
And that's
networking.
the biggest thing, is it's all about networking.
Yeah.
So if you want to be on set, then be on set in any capacity, because
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that you never know, meeting somebody behind scenes leads up to something, leads up to something, leads up to something. and then you become what you want to become, you know? So never like turn down an opportunity because you think, well, that's not what I want to do, you know? Allow it. Like that's how I became a writer for Hollywood Times and things like that, because it's like I'm networking. I'm networking, like, you
Exactly.
know?
And look, that's why I took the COVID compliance officer certification, because I'm already an experienced AD and director, and I know how to run a set. I know how to co-run a set. And so as a COVID compliance officer, now there's another skill set, there's another job that they're screaming for. And I haven't booked one yet, but I've been applying to them. And if I get on set, they'll be like, well, you're also an AD. Good to keep in mind, you know, down the road. I'm like, yeah. And then down the road, no need for CCO anymore. But you know, you were great as a CCO, you know, last year. You want to be my second? You want to be my second? You want to be my first? You know, and
Yeah,
you know, things kind of snowball and compound like that.
that'd be great.
Exactly.
So true.
Any socials, links, plugs you wanna put out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can definitely find me on Facebook. It's always going to be my name, Victoria Stevens. My headshot's the same. My website's victoriastevens.org. Everything's very self-explanatory with mine. And of course, you can find me on IMDb if you want to find all my contact or reels and all that good stuff.
Yep, yep. Well, links are in the description below for Victoria Stevens. And Victoria, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was an awesome hour and 1 minute so
Fabulous.
far. Yeah. A lot of
Time
great,
flew.
absolutely. A lot of great stories, ideas, insights, great stuff. And I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do, and check us out next time.